Hi, today we'll see how you can use MuleSoft as an OAuth2 provider to secure your applications. So, what is OAuth? OAuth is nothing but an industry standard authorization framework that enables applications to obtain limited access to user resources without sharing credentials. So, for example, you are a user and you want your application to access certain things on your behalf, but you don't want to provide the actual credentials to that application. You can use O2 provider so that you can provide that application with limited access. So let's look at what we have to do. So this is our application and this is what I have configured. So to use MuleSoft as an O2 provider, you need to add this module O2 provider. So you just go to Exchange and write O2. You will see this O provider module mule4 and you need to just import it. So once you import it, you will see these four operations. So for this application, I've used only create client and validate client, but in your case you have to use all four. So let's look at the global configurations for this O2 provider. So we have this provider name. I have wrote down mule auth. You also need to provide the listener config, so I'll tell you why in a while. And all of these are basic configs, so you need to provide a client store where all of the client that are created using your provider will store. So this is nothing but an object store config. Apart from it, you need to provide the supported client type, which is client credentials, and the listener that we have configured earlier is for the token endpoint. So we don't have a specific token connector, get token connector. So this will be done through this OAuth provider config. And you also need to add a token store, so the token you have generated will be stored in an object store. So you also need to create one separate object store to store the token, and you can also provide refresh token as well, but it is not mandatory. And here I have configured the token TTL, token time to live. That means for how much time the token is valid. So I provided 3600 seconds, that is approximately 1 hour. So these are the configs that I have configured here. And if I go to create client connector, so you can see I have configured the client ID, secret, and client name. So these are the basic configs that I need to provide, and also the authorized client type, which is client credentials in this case. So what this create client does is it will create a new client for us, and on behalf of that client, we can generate token, which will indeed be used to access the applications. Uh, on your behalf. So also you can provide scopes as well to limit the access to certain operations as well. So this is it. I have provided a generic response. The client created successfully, and the second flow will validate the token. So once you have created a client and you have generated the token with slash token endpoint, you need to validate that token. So this validate token request will be used by your application to check if the token passed is correct or not. So these are the two operations that I performed here. We are just configuring like this, like the authorization header will be received where it contains the token. So it is configured in a way that the token is passed as a second element, like we are passing a string with bearer space token. And once we do split by, so split, it will split the bearer and the token, and we are getting the second element, that is the token. So we are very this connector will validate this token in the object store and will give us the response back. So this is the entire working of this application. So I have deployed this application in Cloud Hub, and I have these endpoints. So this is the create client endpoint that we have created first. So we need to provide the client ID, client secret, and client name. So once this is done, so I'll send this request. So this will create a client for us in MuleSoft application, which is stored in the object store. And once the client is created, so we need to ask for token, which will be passing while calling certain applications where this policy is configured. So we need to pass client ID, client secret, and client type. So once we pass this on the slash token endpoint, so you'll receive a token back. So here you can see this token expires in 3600 seconds. And so I'll copy this token, and we can validate this token using this request. So this is the validate endpoint, and you just have to pass the token here. So once you pass the token, it will validate if the token is correct or not. If token is correct, we'll get 200 response back with the expiry time, how much longer this token will be valid. And if we pass incorrect token, let's say I remove this value, so it will give us 401, that is the token received is not valid. So once this is done and we have deployed the application to Cloud Hub, we can configure the policy. So to test this, I have created one application, or I would say I've created one raml first. So this user API will use this policy. Here I have just one sample endpoint, user getting user by user ID, and it is using the OAuth 2.0. So I have published this API to Exchange and created a API instance in API Manager, where I will configure this OAuth 2.0 policy. So this is the API instance of that API, and if I go to policies, you will see this OAuth 2.0 access token enforcement using Mule OAuth provider. So you can create this policy from here, add policy, and you need to create this. Click on this and it will create the policy. So let's see the configurations of that policy. Here you can provide the scopes as well to perform certain operations, and this is optional. Apart from it, you have to provide the validate URL. So this is the same URL which we have used to validate our token here, and this is it. You only need to provide this URL. So I have done the skip client ID validation so that you can pass your client ID, your desired client ID, and client secrets. So I have provided the authentication request timeout, which is 10 seconds. So this is all the config that we have to do. Mainly we only need to provide the validate URL, which is going to validate the incoming token. So I have added this policy, and I have also created this user app locally, which is using this ABI instance. This application is already deployed, and you can see the policy is also applied. So let's test this application. So for now, this is the application URL. We are getting users through 101. I mean, user ID is 101. So I'll request, this is the older token. So we received 401 unauthorized, and it says the token is invalid. So let's pass the latest token that we have generated just now. So you can see you're getting a 200 response back with the actual response payload. So this is how you can configure the OAuth policy and how you can use it in your application. So this is it for this video.